In a quiet field in the small town of Lenox, Massachusetts, planning has begun on a remarkable building project. Roughly circular, about 72 feet in diameter, and only 3 stories tall, this is a structure that the world has not seen for more than 400 years. To be built entirely by hand, of solid oak timbers, with walls of lime plaster and a roof of thatch, the structure is a catalyst for a host of dreams. The dreams of a spirited theater company, the dreams of a team of architects, archaeologists, and scholars, the dream of a community seeking dynamic cultural, educational, and economic growth, the dream of the Rose Playhouse.
Shakespeare's plays have survived without the place in which they were played, which is a mark of their greatness. But I think you get their real greatness in the environment that they were played. And just like there's been an early movement music, so really to go back to playing Bach as Bach would have played Bach, I think there's a lot to be learnt from it, and that there is something so inherently creative about the relationship of space and the spoken word, space and poetry, the building and the text, that unless we recreate a moment when it was happening, it's very difficult to bring it forth again because we have lost that knowledge. So you have to go back to when we know they had that knowledge, and then out of experiencing it ourselves, start re-experiencing what might be possible about putting certain art forms in certain spaces.
Architecture and theater are about taking a very abstract idea and making it real for an audience of people who are not always necessarily known as of the time that the idea is conceived, but with whom one interacts in the process of making the idea real. So both the Boston Architectural Center, which is about training architects and interior designers, and the Rose Theater, which is about bringing a wonderful level of literacy to a broader audience in a theater context that is true to the original and yet living in the 21st century, are on the same track because both are operating in a way that takes an idea, links it with passion, the passion of the theater designer and builder, the passion of the architect and interior designer, and makes it real here in Lenox. And that's pretty cool.
The Rose Playhouse was the first theater of William Shakespeare. He wrote his earliest plays for the Rose, and he may have worked there as an actor. Built in 1587 on the south bank of the Thames River, the Rose was created by the unique confluence of politics, poetry, and entrepreneurial spirit. It was a place where the human voice was heard speaking language in a way that would change the world.
The playhouses were the places where you could go to hear the kind of questions, you know, to be or not to be. That is the question. Well, what on earth does that mean? You know, it means whether 'tis nobler in the mind to struggle in your mind with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or whether in fact you're justified to take up arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing, by killing somebody, end them. And this, to have that as a question out there for ordinary people to think about, is enormous, because for God knows how long there have been people simply in the pulpit saying this is the way you must behave. If you're terribly good, I'll let you know what the good book, i.e. the Bible, says, but I have to translate it for you because it's in Latin, and only I, the priest, can read anyway, so you're not allowed to. Suddenly everything changes.
In 1989, an archaeological excavation revealed the bones of the Rose, an almost perfect footprint of a 16th century playhouse. This discovery sparked an interest in developing a replica of the storied playhouse. An international team of builders, scholars, and architects has joined forces with Shakespeare Company in the Berkshires of western Massachusetts to realize this dream. During a 25-year history, Shakespeare Company founder Tina Packer has been unwavering in her mission to reveal the essence of Shakespeare's voice across the ages.
Is that the company was always meant to be, was set up to be, a company that worked the same way that Shakespeare worked. In other words, it wasn't a company that was about scenery or props or concepts. It was a company that was about the language of Shakespeare and really trying to ask the questions that Shakespeare asks in the plays.
The success of the Globe Theatre recreation in London during the 1990s is informing the development of the Rose Playhouse project. The design of the playhouse, its intimate spaces, the connection between the audience and actors, the roof open to the air, are catalysts for a kind of theater the world has not seen in centuries.
For me, Shakespeare and the act of making theater in an outdoor space creates a learning opportunity in an unconfined environment, outside, often at night under the stars, in a way that creates for a person in the audience a suspension of belief, a way of seeing oneself in a totally different way, seeing acting in a totally different way, feeling in a much more visceral way a connection not only with the immediacy of the environment that you're in, but also feeling this extraordinary connection to some guy who wrote remarkable and still comprehensible lines 500 years ago.
If you're going to do Shakespeare properly, you have to play to the audience. You have to take the audience with you moment by moment by moment. And so it's kind of these successive moments of now in which the audience is going with you and being with you and going through viscerally the same states of being as the actors are.
And passage to remorse. That no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it.
The dream of building the Rose is not only for actors. Already, the idea of the Rose Playhouse is providing educational opportunities for teams of timber framers and artisans of many disciplines.
I mean, it's an unending opportunity for collaboration. And I have to say, not unlike in the way in which the Elizabethans collaborated with each other. So yet again, we're going back to this moment in the Western tradition when many disciplines collaborated with each other in order to bring forth something which was greater than the parts.
Collaboration between the different disciplines involved in the project offers a unique opportunity to experience the way that art and architecture shape the world we live in. Architects are experiencing the way that archaeology informs us about lost building practices. Builders are collaborating with actors to create a space that resonates. The Rose Playhouse project will be a living expression of form celebrating function.
One of the things that could happen in the Rose BAC collaboration is that we could bring people into the process who have never thought of themselves necessarily as being in a kind of Shakespearean space, a space of mind and of heart and of emotional connection to a set of narratives, a set of stories that have just as much meaning now as they did at the time that they were written, and that the creation of the physical theater is the impetus, it's the catalytic event that makes it possible to enable people to come together in a large group, to interact with people who are on the stage, to interact with the people who built that theater in a way that then enables them to find a whole new identity for themselves.
A catalyst is inert until it comes in contact with another substance. The Rose Playhouse is forging a passionate alchemy between unlikely partners. Today it is still the stuff of dreams. A few plans, some rough-hewn timbers, a gleam in an actor's eye. But now the forces of creation are already beginning to combust. In a field in Lenox, dreams are becoming reality.
What I hope we're going to be able to do is to go in depth in quite a lot of disciplines and be able to see what comes out of it.